Everyone to another stream. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining my learning journey. So today I want to continue in this 17th part to learn FastAPI. So today I'll be looking at form data, and then I'll go on to look at another topic very soon. So yeah, let me carry on from here. So yeah, they're saying form data. So they're saying when you need to receive form fields instead of JSON, you can use form. So for those of you who might have done backend development, you know that you can either receive form fields or JSON. Okay, for some endpoints. Okay, yeah. So this is good to know. And then they're saying to use forms, first install Python multipart. So they're saying make sure you create a virtual environment, activate it, then install it. For example, pip install Python multipart. For those of you who know basic HTML, you know that in your form, you have to put the ink type equals to form multipart. So I think that's why this is required to aid us with that. So let me copy and go here to the shell. Like you can see, I'm in a virtual environment called base, and I hit enter. Okay, but there's an issue because of that $sign at the beginning, so I need to remove it. Then I hit enter. It says requirement already satisfied, so it's already installed. So ensure that you do. And if you're wondering why I call this base, it's just a virtual environment where I throw all junk. But when I'm creating a specific project, I put exactly what I want. So yeah, let's go on. So you're saying the first thing is to, after you've installed Python multipart, they're saying import form. They're saying import form from FastAPI. So yeah, the first thing is importing annotated from typing, which we know its purpose. Then they're saying from FastAPI, import FastAPI and form. I like that. Yeah, FastAPI is like inbuilt. Can I call it like almost batteries included? They have most of the things, which is pretty good to know. So after this, I need to go on. So they are saying app equals to FastAPI. This is an instance of FastAPI. Then we have a path operation decorator, then a path operation function. So the first function parameter here is username, which has been annotated. It's going to be of type string, but the metadata is form. So telling, I think, FastAPI that this is a form. The password is also coming from a form. Okay. So for people dealing with other versions like Python 3.8 and above, you see this is how they deal with it. Are there any differences? I'm not sure I noticed any, but if you do, please let me know. Then they're saying Python 3.8, but without using annotated. So you see what happens? They just say the username equals to form and password equals to form without using annotated. But like you've known from the very beginning, they say prefer to use the annotated version if possible. So I'll close this, okay, and just maybe copy this to my editor just to make sure all is okay, and save. I'm going to come back to this soon, maybe even format it using black. Okay, looks like black thinks everything's okay. Let me see if I put a comma here, will it format? Yeah, and it did. So, okay, this is okay. I'll come back to this very soon. So the first thing is to import form. That is done. After importing form, they're saying define the form parameters. Okay, just like we know for query, for path parameters, for body parameters, you have to first of all import. Okay, so let this be now second nature. By the time we're now on the 17th stream, this should be like second nature. If you want to create a path parameter, you have to import path. If you want to create a query parameter, you have to import query. If you want to create a cookie parameter, import cookie. If you want to create a body request body param, have body imported. If you want to create a header, okay, that. And we have seen all these so far, all these, okay, including their parameter models. Okay, so models help you to group these things together. But let me not go into this because we have done this and I do not waste time for those who have already watched me do that. But I'm just trying to emphasize that how you're seeing how things are all related and like becoming second nature, if I can say if that's the right statement to say. So they're saying create form parameters the same way you would for body or query, what I just said. So they're saying this works in Python 3.9 and above. It's actually very important to take note of this, okay? It's not just for decoration. It can save you a lot of headache when you know the version you're working with to avoid. Sometimes you can debug forever and think your ancestors have cast you. But when the actual problem is that you're working with the wrong Python version. So say from typing import annotated, from FastAPI import FastAPI and form, put an instance of FastAPI. We have a path operation function, I mean a path operation decorator, and the route is login. Okay, and this makes sense. So when you're logging in, you might need a form. Okay, but still you may only accept a JSON. Okay, so the path operation function here has a username and a password. Okay, and they've been annotated. Okay, with form and form. Okay, so two fields, username, password, they are going to be from a form. Okay, so this tells FastAPI that they're going to be from a form and the values are of type string. So it's going to be string value. So for people having other variants, yeah, you can look at this like Python 3.8 plus. So I'll go on. So they're saying, for example, in one of the ways the OAuth2 specification can be used, called password flow, it is required to send a username and password as form fields. Okay. If you don't know what OAuth2 is, don't worry, but I guess it should be ahead somewhere. So after this, let me see. Just a moment, I need to read this again. They're saying, for example, in one of the ways the OAuth2 specification can be used, called password flow, it is required to send a username and password as form fields. Okay, that's that. So let me just try to explain this briefly. OAuth2 is simply a specification or a set of rules or protocols that define how a user should be authenticated. Okay, and according to OAuth2, for someone to be authenticated, they should provide a username and they should also provide their password. As simple as that. I hope that makes sense for those who don't know what OAuth2 is. So then they're saying the spec or the specification. So spec is short form for specification. The spec requires the fields to be exactly named username and password. So you cannot say usernames or passwords or pass or name. It has to be exactly username and password, and to be sent as form fields, not JSON. Yeah. So take note of this. Certain specifications are very strict. Okay, are very strict, and they expect you to send information as they say. Okay, so you have to take note of that. This is a good thing actually to learn that things are not, you don't have to cram. So for example, like here, I cannot change this to be maybe usernames or passwords according to auth to specification. Neither can I call it pass or expect information called user. Okay, we have to have exactly that. Okay, but remember, this is the auth2 spec that requires that the fields are named this and this. Okay, if you're not implementing auth2 and you're doing your own thing, it can be something else. Okay, Savan Banderi, how are you doing? Thank you for joining today's stream. Savan, I hope I pronounced your name well. Where are you from? All right, let's continue. They're saying with form, you can declare the same configurations as with body, query, path, and cookie, including validation, examples, and alias. For example, username, user with a is it called a hyphen? Yeah, instead of username. Okay, like this without this character. I grew up calling this a dash. I don't know what you guys call it, but yeah, it's a hyphen. Wait, let me be right. Let me not mislead you guys. English is not our first language. Hyphen, yeah. So you see, it's this symbol here. If I can, it's a hyphen. Okay, cancel that. Let's continue. So they're saying form is a class that inherits directly from body. Okay, this is good to know, and we can prove it. Do you know how? I can come to the source code and hover over this with the mouse. If I look at here, okay, it's not shown, but I can hover over, press command on the keyboard or control on for guys on Windows and click. Okay, so it says inheritance. I'm not seeing the inheritance. Okay, is it somewhere? Wow, this is long. This is really long. Well, I will not spend time on this. It's really long. Okay, probably they implemented it somewhere. But if they say they implemented, why would they lie? Okay, they wouldn't lie. So what is valid is that probably it's just my knowledge, which is limited to understand their implementation. Like search for body. Okay, body. I'm looking for. Looks like I've gone through it. Oh, I think it's this return params.body. Probably, but they're returning params.body. I was not. Wait. There's something interesting. If you look at this, okay, this is a function, guys. It's not a class. So it's me. That's why I said they cannot lie. It's me who is being wrong here. Okay, their implementation is a function, and only a class can inherit. So ideally, what this would mean is that, like we know, query, path, cookie are functions that return instances of special classes. So in another case, form is also a class that inherits directly from body. But form itself, what we have here, if I close this, is actually a function. That's why we use it like this with parentheses. It's a function which returns a special class. Okay, and we know that that class inherits from body. Interesting. I don't know if you guys get it, but let me continue. They're saying tip: to declare form bodies, you need to use form explicitly, because without it, the parameters would be interpreted as query parameters or body JSON parameters. So we have to be specific and explicit that it is a form. If you don't, FastAPI will know that those are query parameters or body parameters. That would mean you're working with JSON, ideally. Okay. I don't know if Savan is still on the stream, but thank you for watching and following along. I hope all of you are learning. So maybe before I continue, I want to see the documentation. Okay. So is it localhost? Is it 8000/docs? I want to see how this appears in the documentation. Okay. So I'll expand this a little bit. Zoom in, then come here. Like we see, it's a post method. The route is login. There are no parameters. Then there's a request body required. Okay. So you see here the type, it is application/x form URL encoded. Okay. This is the type for form data. For JSON, it would be application/JSON. So the username is required and should be a string. The password should be required and it's also a string. Okay. Then let's try it out. If I say try it out, now you see actually even give us a form. Okay. Instead of JSON, we put a form. Okay. So I can send this. Okay. I can say execute. And if you see the response, we get a 200 okay and a username. Okay. Very cool, very nice. Okay. If I change this to string FastAPI like this, string FastAPI, and do this, execute, you see we get string FastAPI returned. Very nice. Linus, thank you for joining. Linus, I owe you one in life. Yeah, no jokes. Yeah, you're such a consistent person, and you're motivator. But sometimes in life you need people, even when you're learning like this in public. Okay, they encourage you to keep going. Yeah, I'm glad to know that you're learning. So yeah, so this was me just testing out the endpoint. Yeah, because sometimes by testing out, then things make sense. So let me continue. They're saying about form fields. So they're saying the way HTML forms. So these HTML form tags, okay? If you don't know HTML, it's okay. HTML is simply a markup language which helps you to structure a page like this page, okay? And where you enter like an email and password on the internet. For example, let me do this example login page just for anybody who may not know HTML. So let me say, so like this one, this is a form. If I check the source code, okay, if I inspect this, okay, and come here, I click on this. Are you seeing this? Let me try to expand this so you can see better. Okay. Then I scroll. Are you seeing this? This is the form they're talking about. Let me expand it. Let me zoom out a little bit. So this is the form. You see? This is the form element. If I do like, if I close all this, you see it closes. It opens form, then it closes down here. So this is what they're referring to as the form. So they're saying the HTML forms sends the data to the server, normally uses a special encoding for that data. It's different from JSON, okay? The encoding for a form is different from the encoding for JSON. Like we have been working since the beginning, we know what JSON looks like, okay? And now they're telling us the encoding for form is different. They're saying FastAPI will make sure to read that data from the right place instead of JSON, which is pretty good. Then they're saying data forms is normally encoded using, data from forms, not data from, but data from forms is normally encoded using the media type application /x www form URL encoded. I guess you already know about that. That's what I showed you right here. Okay, here. Okay. So have that in your mind that when you may be reading API documentation and you see this kind of encoding, then you know you're going to deal with form data. Okay. So this is good. Even front-end developers would need this kind of information. So let's continue. They're saying when the form includes files, it's encoded as multi-part form data. They're saying you'll be reading about handling files in the next chapter, which is good to know. So they're saying if you want to read more about these encodings and form fields, head to the MDN web docs for posts. Okay, so you can open MDN and read more about these encodings. Maybe if I click on it, you can see post what etc. Okay, but yeah, or you can learn them as you need to. But so far now we know three types of encoding. Okay, one for the forms is this one. Okay, application XWW form URL encoded. Then if the form is going to include a file, like an image, a JSON file, maybe an audio file, maybe a video. So this is what you give it, multi-part form data. Okay, so take note of that. All right, then they have a warning for us here. They're saying you can declare multiple form parameters in a path operation, but you can't also declare body fields that you expect to receive as JSON, as the request will have the body encoded using application XWW form URL encoded instead of application JSON. So they're saying this is not a limitation of FastAPI, it's part of the HTTP protocol. So a protocol is simply a set of rules. So they're telling us that once you declare many form parameters, a path operation, okay, but you can't also declare body fields that you expect to receive as JSON, okay? As the request will have the body encoding application X form URL encoded. Hey, Aman, how are you doing? And where are you watching from and learning from FastAPI? So yeah, this is good information to know. It will reduce actually frustration, okay? Because you may try to have what? Form parameters. So let's just, so like you see here, we have two. These are many, okay? But they're saying we cannot do this. And maybe I come here, then I say maybe you want to put favorite city, okay? But favorite city is going to come from the body. Then I say body. Okay. Then I come here and I say body. Okay. They're saying they say, but you can't also declare body fields that you expect to receive as JSON. This cannot be JSON. Why? But because they're saying the request will have the body encoded using application x www form URL encoded instead of application JSON. So that wouldn't work. Okay, that wouldn't work. And they're saying it's not a limitation of FastAPI, meaning it can be, they would have implemented it, but it's part of the HTTP protocol, meaning the set of rules. And actually, everybody who creates web frameworks like FastAPI, people who create things like Django, people who create things like Flask, Express, okay, things like Laravel, things like Spring Boot, okay, .NET C Sharp, they follow everybody creates their framework to follow the HTTP protocol. Okay, there has to be someone setting rules, and the rules have to be followed. Okay, so we have come to the end, and we're going to the next topic. So they're saying use form to declare form data input parameters. Okay, so another in other words, if you're receiving information from a form, simply use form. Okay, so let's go to the next topic. Okay, so I hope that made sense to you. Okay, so again, I'll be having another stream this evening, and in that stream will be going into another topic. Okay, so I think on Saturdays, whenever possible, I'll have two streams. One in the morning, right now at 10 a.m. East African time, and then later in the evening at 9 p.m. East African time. So this evening, I'll have another stream where we shall continue with the topic request files. Okay, request files and request forms and files. So yeah, let's go ahead. So form models, okay? So they say you can use Pydantic models to declare form fields in FastAPI. I hope now you see the similarity, okay? You can see similarity. For a query, you can have a query parameter, or you can work with a query parameter and a Pydantic model. You can have an individual path parameter, okay? You can have a single body parameter, or you can create body parameters which are related using Pydantic models. The same thing happens. We saw cookies, single cookies, or cookies with Pydantic models. We saw headers or headers with Pydantic models. Okay, so it's just the same thing. Okay, the same technique. Alina says, "I appreciate your streams. You have made me consistent in learning FastAPI." Wow, that's very humbling. That's very humbling. Thank you, Linus. Yeah, and what sets apart people in the world is simply being disciplined and consistent at something, doing something again and again and again, whether you're in the mood or you're not in the mood, whether someone made you angry, whether you're happy, you just continue doing it. Like last night, I was on a meeting with a number of friends we were trying to create a startup, and we're discussing the designs of the application and doing some reviews, asking our questions here and there, and the meeting went way beyond, okay, for a long time. And after that, I had to hop another call with a friend, and that I ended up sleeping like at 1 a.m. So in the morning when I was waking up, I felt a little bit, okay, lazy and having sleep, but I was like, oh, no way. I have to continue what? Studying, okay? I made a pledge to myself that no matter what, okay? So I set up the stream, made the announcements on LinkedIn and X and on YouTube here, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going on with this. So consistency is what sets people apart. And look at me here now. We're almost 20 minutes into the stream. Yeah, now the goal, like is to finish this, okay, this guide. After finishing this guide, I want to build that project I showed you last time. So let's continue. So they're saying to use forms, install Python multipart. We know that. They're saying make sure you create a virtual environment, activate it, then install it. For example, pip install Python multipart. And we have that already installed here in this base virtual environment. Then they're saying this is supported since FastAPI version 0.113.0. I don't know, what does this emoji mean? Does it mean cool? Does it mean happy? Okay, I was going to copy it and put it in Google, but let's not go there. Okay, so they're saying Pydantic models for forms. A man says you came randomly on my homepage right now. Excellent tutorials you have. Wow, I'm humbled, man. Thank you for those kind thoughts and kind words. I really appreciate. So yeah, let's go read Pydantic models for forms. So like I've said, you see now the relationship, okay? The relationship, guys. For a body parameter, we can also use, we can have a single body parameter or group related body parameters using Pydantic models. For query parameters, we can have single query parameters or group related query parameters using a Pydantic model. The same thing for cookies. You can have a single cookie or group related cookies using a Pydantic model. For related, what do they call them? Related, what's the other one? Is it, I've mentioned cookies, headers, queries. What else have I left out? Yeah, that is it. But you get the point. Also for here, we've seen that also for forms, we can use Pydantic models. Okay, so let's continue. So they're saying you just need to declare a Pydantic model with the fields you want to receive as form fields. Then declare the parameter as a form. Okay, so let's now interpret this statement by reading this. Of course, you know we need annotated. By now we know this from the typing module. We know that we need FastAPI and form from FastAPI. Why do we need FastAPI? Because we need a FastAPI instance. Why do we need form? We need form because we are creating form parameters. We're expecting form data. We need base model from Pydantic. Why? Because base model helps us to create Pydantic models. Then they create a FastAPI instance. After that, we have a class called form data. And form data is now a Pydantic model. Why is it a Pydantic model? Because it inherits from base model. And this form data Pydantic model has two public class attributes, okay? Username and password. Username is a string, password is a string, and both of them are required. We go on, we have a path operation decorator, okay? With a route or path called login. Then we have a path operation function, okay? And it's a synchronous def. For those who don't know about this, you can watch the very first, I think the second actually stream or in this series, part 2, we discussed this async, what async def means. Actually, you can work without async def. Then it's called login and it has a function parameter. This function parameter is annotated. Why do we use annotated? Because we want to add metadata. The metadata we are adding is form to tell FastAPI that this is a form data, okay? And then we have the type. Its type is of type form data. So just because of this, Pydantic will do the validation to ensure that these are strings and that they have been provided. Okay, then we can return the data. So they're saying FastAPI will extract the data for each field from the form data in the request and give you the Pydantic model you defined. Again, all of us who have been following, okay, or even you who are just joining today, this is a common thing, okay? FastAPI extracts the data for us for every field, okay? It validates it, it can filter it, generate the schema documentation, and this mean the schema and use that schema for OpenAI. Is it OpenAPI? Okay, not AI, but OpenAPI to create the UI docs. Okay, and actually, I was going to the docs. You're saying check the docs. Okay, so I'll copy this code. And again, take note of this is Python 3.9 plus. Okay, so this will not work with other versions. Really take note of that. So I'll copy all this, remove, paste. Okay, so I've already explained this code. We can now go to the documentation. If I refresh, okay, you see that it's a post request, login, it has no parameters, but the request body is required. Username, a string, and password, and the responses they give us 200, okay, and 42, a validation error. Okay, but let's try it out and take note of this. The encoding is application/x www-form-url encoded. Again, this tells you the type of data we're working with, form data. So I'll click this to try it out. Okay, if I remove this, for those of you who might be curious, who have not been here since the beginning, and I click execute, you see, this fails. Why? Because they are required. Okay, so I can put a username, say username is Nehe, password, I put a very complex password, okay, execute, Then I come here down, you see, response body, get a username, this, password, this. Of course, guys, don't do this, okay? This is learning purposes. Don't say I said you can return a password. People will hack your application to death. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry for that. So yeah, let's go here. And yeah, now we know that returning data is simply returning this model. Okay. But yes, it is smart enough to convert it for us to JSON. Okay. Very, very cool. So yeah, I think that is it. So maybe if you're thinking, if I left out one, will it work? You see, it wouldn't work still. All right. So, excuse me, sorry. Liner says, I have appreciated the use of annotated. I see without it, we cannot explicitly specify if we want a query, cookie, header, form, among others. Without annotated, FastAPI uses default we may not need. Yes, that's correct. You've understood the issues, the concept very, very well. Okay. Aman is saying, where do you deploy your backend if you want to deploy it for free? You have any good recommendation? Yeah, let me give you recommendations which I've used. Okay. But Aman, you also have to try them on your own to determine. Okay. The first one I use is called Python Anywhere. Okay. In the past, I've used this for basic Django apps. Okay. There's a free tier. Okay. This one. It's very easy to. I even don't think they require a credit card. Okay. Actually, if you go to pricing and sign up, you'll see beginner. You see beginner free. Okay. Say create a beginner account. It is free. Then if you need expensive stuff, you can pay for the other ones. Another one is maybe AWS. AWS free tier. You can host on AWS free tier. But I think for every AWS, you need to put in your credit card. Okay. Then they will do a test on your card by charging $1. But after that, I think they won't do that. They won't. I think they'll refund you back your money. Okay. But they will do a test. Okay. But AWS free tier will give you a whole year of free resources. And I think with this, you'll have access to their database, object storage, EC2, IM, even the, I think for the network, I forget what it's called. Yeah. So AWS, I think also DigitalOcean has, if I remember. Actually, there's something called Render. Okay. Render also has, but I've never used it. I've had people talk about it somewhere where I mentor. But DigitalOcean, not time I deployed DigitalOcean, but it was too very far. I mean, some years back. I'm not sure if they have free tier. Let us see their pricing. Okay, these guys don't have. They're saying 0, starting at 0. Okay. Just see. Okay, they have a free tier too. Okay, 3 app static. Yeah, but start from Python Anywhere. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Okay, Python Anywhere. So yeah, if you like this video, you can share it, share with your friends, and we build a community of learning and building awesome tools. Okay, like it and share. So let's go back to documentation. And by the way, for FastAPI, I saw the create of FastAPI some time back. Man says, "Oh, that is very interesting. What about hosting FastAPI apps? What do you use?" For FastAPI apps, to be honest, this may this is my learning journey. I've never hosted the FastAPI app before. This is me just learning live on YouTube FastAPI, and I'm going to build a backend, okay, using FastAPI. And then after that, I'll deploy it. So all that I'm going to just be in a journey of discovery, okay? But I'm sure Python anyway should do that. AWS should do that, okay? And recently, the creator of FastAPI announced something. Is it called FastAPI Cloud? Let me Google it. FastAPI Cloud. Is it cloud? Not Fast Cloud, but Fast API Cloud. Let me see if I can. So they say FastAPI Cloud by the same team behind FastAPI. Okay. So if you scroll, they say deploy to FastAPI Cloud. So saying if you have a if you have a FastAPI app, you can now run FastAPI login, FastAPI deploy, then they give you the link. Then they say, and that's it. We handle the rest. You get automatic deployments, HTTPS, auto scaling, including down to 0 to save on costs, and more. Let me expand this so that you can read it. And more features to come, all optimized for FastAPI and Python. You code, we cloud. So I think what they're doing is like just like the Vassal team created Next.js, the guys of FastAPI created FastAPI Cloud. Yeah, so my memory served me right because I remembered that the creator of FastAPI announced this on his LinkedIn so a few, either a month ago last year, either late last year or early this year. Can't remember properly. So they explain why you should use it. Yeah. So actually, I think I'll use this. I think I will deploy here. Then I'll also deploy to Python anywhere, maybe also to AWS so that, yeah, we learn and we see the performance. Okay. This is what they say, but we have to try it out to prove, okay, that they're actually right. So I will, yeah, so this is it. Okay. I don't know if they have pricing or something. I don't know. I'm trying to. So we're building, so joining the waiting list. Okay, so it looks like it's still something on the run. Okay, so it's say joining the waiting list. Let me put say email. Let me put my email, gmail.com. Wow, this is a lot. So I'll do this after. Let us finish. Okay, sorry for diverting. Let us finish. So we're on checking the docs. We checked the docs, and we got that. So one more thing they're saying: forbid extra form fields. Okay. Man says, this is very interesting. Thank you. I appreciate. Wow, right knowledge is very useful. Thank you so much. I appreciate Aman for your kind words. So, okay, forbid extra form fields. So they say in some special use cases, probably not very common, you might want to restrict the form fields to only those declared in the Pydantic model and forbid any extra fields. Guys, now you guys you now know from the beginning, we now know what this is all about. Okay. We know what this is all about. So just like you can restrict something in the body parameters, you can restrict in the query like we saw, I think even the cookie and header. It's possible also for this. And they say this is supported since FastAPI version 114. It's been 0.114.0. Okay. Mentioning these versions is actually very, very important. It's not a mistake. So they're saying you can use Pydantic's model configuration to forbid any extra fields. You can use Pydantic's model configuration to forbid any extra fields. And we know that, okay, model config is a property of base model and it's a dictionary, okay? So just like you can forbid, if I copy this, okay, and paste this here, and then what changes is this. Meaning, this means simply in form data, someone should only send a username and password. But without this, okay, without saying extra, forbid. If someone maybe adds, let's say, for example, they add something like, which field can I say? Maybe first name, okay? It will be sent, okay, to your endpoint. First name will be sent. Come on, what's AI doing to me? Okay, I'm going to type that. Or maybe you want to add someone like last name, okay? You want to add like email, okay? These will be sent, okay? But if you want someone to send exactly username and password in their form, then say model config extra forbid, okay? In other words, we are forbidding any extra attribute. So I'll remove this, okay, and save. Okay, if you go to documentation, ideally you're going to have the same thing, okay, the same thing. And of course, we shall test this out when we are building our forms and the application. All right. So for people working with other versions, Python 3.8 plus, okay, you can look at this, okay. But look at what where they are importing annotated from. They're getting typing extensions. Okay, import annotated. Take note of that. Then those using Python 3.8 but don't want to use annotated, you can do this. But they recommend use annotated. Don't doubt them. These are the creators. They know why they want us to use that. So they're saying if a client tries to send some extra data, they will receive an error response. Okay. And that is true, like we saw. So they're saying, for example, if the client tries to send form fields, username, password, extra, okay, it will fail because extra is not part of the Pydantic model. You see, it's not a username, it's not a password. Okay. So they say they will receive an error message, an error response telling them that the field extra is not allowed. And you get JSON like this, having a key called detail, and detail, like we already know, is a list of dictionaries. And each dictionary has information concerning the error. The type, in this case, is extra forbidden. The lock tells us the parameter, what it is, that in the body, we have extra stuff, and the message is that extra inputs are not permitted. And the input which is extra is this, what you sent. Okay. The value is extra, is what is Mr. Poopy Butthole. Wow. Wow, these guys. And the key is this extra, and this is the value. Then somebody they're saying you can use Pydantic models to declare form fields in FastAPI. Just like we know that you can use Pydantic models to declare body fields, you can declare query fields, you can declare what is it called? Cookies, headers, same thing. Actually, if I change this, okay, just one more thing. Actually, we have come to the end, but let me show you one thing. I can, if I import, instead of form, I import body, okay? I can change, okay, this by just coming here and say body, just to show those maybe who have not been following. I'm changing the body from form, I'm changing to body. So this becomes a request body parameter. And if I go back to here, to documentation and refresh, okay, you see, request body, example value. Now it's JSON, not a form. They don't give us a form, it is JSON. And look at the type. It is application slash JSON. Okay. So saying JSON and JSON is going to make me chew my tongue. Okay. So I'll try it out. Okay. And you see the example they give, execute, we get back stuff. Okay. And this configuration works, guys. It works. Okay. So you can, if I come here and I say maybe I add extra, okay, and I say maybe extra, we are sending an email, okay, give me an email, and I say the email is nehe at what, at YouTube, okay, .com, okay, and then I execute. Look at the rest, what I get. 422 unprocessable error. Look at the detail, type, forbidden. We get that it's the email, which is a body parameter, has been rejected, and the message is extra inputs are not permitted. What is the input? It is this for this key. Okay, so you see how these things are powerful. And I could change this to just a query. I can say, okay, this is now going to be a query parameter. And I can come up here and say query like that. Okay, and if I refresh, you see they tell us parameters. Look at in brackets, the type is now query. These are now queries. And if we try it out, okay, we need to give them query parameters. So this is nice, whereby you can have, for example, let's say we have login, okay, with a query. Then we can have login maybe version 2, but this one here, the data is probably going to be a body, okay. Then I can have maybe login, just to show that you can, this is now, they make life easy and you can apply it anywhere you want, okay. This is going to be, maybe they're going to be queries, okay. So I've used the same base model, the same Pydantic model, but the use cases are different, okay. The type and valid, so the type validation, okay, these types, okay, for all these will extract the data, validate or filter, generate schema, and the UI docs, okay. but each of them are different. This one's like, these are query parameters, request body, and this one can be form data. Name it form. So I didn't see that duplication. Okay, I can say form like that. And if you want to change these just to make sure it makes sense, you can use inheritance. Okay, like they showed that, like we saw yesterday. I can come here and say class. Okay, I say body data. Okay, then do you know what I do? I simply inherit from form data. So it's because they're the same. Okay, inherit from form data and say pass empty class. Then I say class query data. I like AI is helping here with completing. Then I also say empty. Okay, so body is supposed to be body, not border. Body query. Then here I can change this one. I can copy this because I'm lazy. Change this to query data. Copy this one. Come here. Change it to form data. I mean body data. So like you see, this has to be empty. I have to say pass like this and save. So you see, query data, query, body data, body, form data, form. Okay. And ideally, I think when you're creating an application, actually, I would put all these in a separate class, but it's not going to structure right now because they may be structuring their things differently in FastAPI. Okay. They may be structuring them. Sorry if you're hearing background noise, just coming from the neighborhood. So I could structure this differently, but I don't want to do that because my structuring and way comes from working in other frameworks. And FastAPI might have a different way of structuring their projects, but this is something we are going to look at very soon. So yeah, pretty nice. And like you see, easy, right? Easy. So I hope you like this. If you do, yeah, you can like the video and yeah, share this journey with your friends and let's go on. So let me see what else they're talking about from models. Yeah, I think by the way we reached here. We were done. Okay. So thank you all for following. In the evening today, 9 p.m. We shall now be going on to something else. We'll be starting on request files and then go to request forms and files. Yeah. Who knew it? I like scrolling up here to always see the things I've talked about. All this. Just being consistent, guys, can make a difference. So at night we shall go into this, and before that we studied this and this. Just being consistent, okay, and look at how far we've come. So yeah, thank you for learning with me. And yeah, if you have any thoughts, if you have said anything wrong, let me know in the comment section. That will show up after this. Yeah, but thank you for learning with me. Bye for now, and let's meet in the evening.